Welcome to our third Saturday classes, public gardening classes. So welcome all. So we have this morning Janet Jobe, who has been a master gardener since 2013 and is a member of the Missionary Ridge Garden Club. She's been a member for the past 8 years. Her education is in art and economics, with a minor in math and music from Agnes Scott College and an MBA from UTC in business finance. And she's had an extensive career in information systems programming and a second career in fundraising. She's also been the past mayor of Ridgeside, Tennessee. So Janet is one busy woman. But she has studied flower arranging for a number of years, and she studied Ikebana under Master Taylor O'Hara School in Stone Lantern in Highlands, North Carolina. But welcome, and we're all looking forward to finding out more about what you know.
Thank you, and welcome. Today it's a good day to talk about doing a simple flower arrangement because it's kind of cloudy and cold here, but you can see right here that I have an arrangement I made yesterday from dried flowers out of my yard and my neighbor's yard with permission. So this is a simple Ikebana arrangement, and we are going to make one live out of fresh flowers. So I'll spell Ikebana for you because I know some people have a hard time with that. And when I watch travel shows, I always wish they would spell the names of the cities in Germany where they are so I can make notes. But if you have a pen, Ikebana is spelled Ikebana. And it's Ikebana stands for giving life to flowers. And I studied under Master Taylor, who was from the O'Hara School. And sadly, she's gone to glory. And the Stone Lantern, where I studied, is now no longer in business. But I think there is an association of Ikebana people that you can join that meet regularly in North Carolina, maybe Charlotte. And a lot of these containers you can find online, and some of the basic tools you can find in the floral department of the local craft stores. Excuse me. So I studied under the O'Hara School. There are different schools you can study under, and today we're going to do a Moribana arrangement, and that's Moribana, and it's a simple upright arrangement. And you can see from this dried arrangement here, what is in the middle is an allium flower or floral piece that dried in my yard, and I thought it was a great treasure. And then I have 3 hydrangeas which do the basic foundation of the Moribana arrangement. And then I've augmented with the crepe myrtle pod right here. And these are purple coneflower dried centers from my neighbor's yard. So I put this together yesterday, and the nice thing about this is you don't have to use water. And it's in a quartz container that I bought from the Stone Lantern, and it already has the Kenzon in the container. And this is an essential piece. I will come around so you can see in the camera. This is a Kenzon, Kenzan, and you can buy these. It's a bunch of little needles onto a metal plate. And this is essential because you can use this in any kind of container to make an arrangement. I have several containers that I bought that already have it installed in the middle. And I don't know if you can see, I'll try to make the light reflect on it. But the Kenzon's already in this container. And that makes it really easy to use. It makes the balance good. And then this is one of my favorite containers. It's a piece of jade slate. And it has, there you go. Can you see it? It's attached on the back. And I bought it this way already attached. But I use this container a lot in my foyer, in my guest bathroom, in my kitchen. And it's been one of my favorites. And then if you don't have a container like this, you can always use any kind of oval disc you might have, or a dish. And this one is about 2 inches thick. And if we have time, I'll put the Kinzon in there and we'll make an arrangement. But it's black, and I pour water in it, and I have some river stones in here to kind of augment the base, because you will be able to look into the container even though your arrangement is coming out one side of it. So you don't have to have a special container. You just have to have a good dish and a Kinzon, and you're ready to go. I'll show you a few other containers, and if we have time, we have so many fresh flowers, we can use them. But this is one of my favorite woven containers. And it has a little bamboo vase that sits down inside there. And then this is a bronze fish, a small container, and it sits on a stand. And it's one of my favorites too. And maybe we'll do this because I have so many flowers. And I'll be able to show you how to take advantage of the flowers. What I'm using today is a bouquet that I bought at a local grocery store, and there are just so many flowers in there. I know it has a wow factor when you look at it as a group, but it really doesn't show off each flower. And I think in America we do too much. We buy arrangements, we cram them in a vase, and you know, we think we've done it. But you can get 5 or 6 arrangements out of this bouquet. And what I like to do is take it apart and then look at the flowers. And I have 3 moms, which I will use for my basic arrangement today. And what you need to do as you look at it is hold it up and get rid of the leaves that look bad or that are bent. One thing I did learn in Ikebana classes is to take off the bad parts and to take off the wilted parts. You don't need those, they look bad. And what you're trying to do is find a beautiful position for this flower. And sometimes these moms, you can kind of shake and flip them back. And if you have like carnations, you can open them up. If this color looks funny to you, it is a funny color. It's kind of a light pink, but it has tipped in a lime green, and I don't know how they did it, but so Moribana arrangement has 3 main points, and the reason it does is because it's a scaling triangle arrangement. And the 3 points can stand for heaven, earth, and man. And they also stand for sun, moon, and earth. So as you start, you will pick out what 3 flowers, and they should be the same flower. And in Ikebana, you always use an odd number of flowers. You never use 2 or 4. It's always 1, 3, 5, 7. But I'm going to use these moms today because they show up well and they last a long time. And you can see I have a little droopy leaf right here on the side of the mom. I'm going to take that off. I'm going to take off these broken leaves. And one thing in Ikebana is you never let the leaves touch the container. So I'm going to look at these and I'm going to decide which one will be my first and primary placement. And I think it's going to be this one, because you see the top of the flower angles down a little bit. And so when you put it in the container, you'll be able to see it. It's not flat up so that you don't get to enjoy what's in the top here. I've trimmed it off, and I will say that this is a meditative art. And of course, I'm not doing much meditation today because I'm talking to you. But normally you do it in quiet. And I have my tools here on a towel because you don't bang your tools down on the table. You have great respect for your tools. In fact, these are I'm trying to hold these in front of this white paper so you can see them. These are my Japanese scissors that I have. And if my master saw me, she'll get on to me today because they're not oiled. They don't look good. And so when I go home, I'm going to oil them and clean them up. But I also have some regular garden shears that I like that can be used as a stripper and also a wire cutter. So they're pretty heavy duty dual accoutrements for what we're about to do. So odd numbers, and also we don't use white or red flowers because those are the colors that they use in their funerals for death. Those are associated with death. Now, it kind of hurts me because I love a big white spider mom. And there are times if I can find some beautiful ones that I will use big white moms because they're just so beautiful. But normally they say do not use those colors. So what we're going to do today, first I'm going to put some water in here. I haven't had any water in this container. And I'm going to cover up the Kinzon and get close to the top of the opening because you will be surprised. How quickly they drink water. So our first placement is 1.5 lengths of your container. So you actually hold your flower down to the container, to the edge of the container, and you measure 1.5 lengths. Did everybody see that? So I'm actually laying my container down. I probably should have worn white. But you lay your flower down and it's 1.5 lengths of the container. And then you cut it. Now, in the Kinzon, I don't cut it too much at an angle because you need a good surface to be able to stick into those pins. But your first placement, and we'll have these instructions loaded for you, I think. It's placed on the vertical at the back of the container. So I'm doing this backwards for you. So it will be correct how you're looking at it. And at some point I may need to turn it to see. So I'm in the center back up against the back edge. And that's my first placement. That's 1.5 length of the container. The second placement, and I want to find my next flower that shows off its top, and you just remove anything that looks bad. I know that's a little different for us to do, but they are very adamant about you take away the distracting parts or the dead parts of the flower. The next placement is going to be 3/4 the width or the length of the container. So I'm going to come in a little bit, and I've got a leaf right there, so I'm going to remove the leaf, and I'm going to cut this second placement. Now remember, we're doing heaven, earth, and man, or sun, moon, and earth. So this second placement is in the first left quadrant of your opening or of your Kinzon. So if you had it in if your Kinzon was divided into 4 squares, this would be in the front left quadrant, and you place it at a 45 angle tilt. You see, that's 90, that's 45, this is 45. That would be 90 or 180, depending on how you're looking at it. And so it goes in at this angle, and it's at a 30-degree angle, front and left. So I'm going in at 45, I'm at 30 degrees from my center flower, 30 degrees this way, and I'm going to put it in. Now you see, I'm very careful not to let that lower leaf touch the top of the container. If it does, then I need to remove it. So I'm going to move it a little bit to make it more 45 degrees once I've placed it in the container. The third placement is the shortest one, and it's 1/2 the length of the container. So I'm going to pull it in right here. I have to remove several leaves. And then it's placed at a 60-degree tilt, which is lower, and it's in the front right quadrant, and it tilts at a 45-degree angle from my main flower. So you see how I'm looking at the screen to make sure I'm doing this backwards, but in the right direction for you. So you can see already, and as you contemplate and look at what you're doing, you just see already it makes sense. It's beautiful, just like it is right there. So if you go outside and you only have 3 flowers, you can do this. And I'll step back so that you can see it. In front of a white spot, but now you see right here I have a leaf touching the edge of the container. So I'm going to remove that leaf. So now I have the basic Moribana, which is upright design Ikebana arrangement. And it's beautiful. It looks pretty from the back. So now what you can do if you want to is augment the arrangement. And you can take your flowers and look at what you have. Well, I don't really like that. You know, you can put in some taller pieces if you want to have one lean over to the side. I think that looks pretty good right there. And at this point, you just start, they don't touch each other. I need to turn this flower so it looks pretty for you. And you just start filling in as you think you should. And so I'm going to lean it out a little bit. Now, since I've done that, I either have to do 2 more or just leave that one. These are not in great shape, so let's try something else. This is a little cluster of mums, and again, they're a funny color. I guess they put dye in there too. But I could put them right in here. Do you see where I have a place right here where I could show them off? It might be a nice addition. You can always try it, and if you don't like it, take it back out. But I'm going to put it in at a slight angle. And you see, I still have great separation between my flowers. And it allows you to appreciate each bloom or each group of blossoms for their own self. I mean, they're not crowded out. They're getting to show off what they do best. Now, you see, I could stop right there, and that would be fine. I have nice space. It has good flow, has good feng shui, if you know what feng shui is. And as you contemplate this and think about it, you will know what looks right, what doesn't. You know, here's a piece of some dyed something, I don't know. Well, I would probably not put that in there. That just doesn't look good. Have a carnation. You know, sometimes you can put a pop of color low at the bottom, and if you have a real pretty flower that you want to show off, you can do that. Also, I'm going to get a couple of pieces of bamboo and cigar plants.
Good question.
So I have some pieces of bamboo, dried bamboo, that I bought at a floral shop. We can use those. And then also these are twigs cut off of my cigar plant. And I really like these. I think they have a great Asian look. And as you can see, this one has an interesting shape to it. It has a V shape right here. And I think I'm going to try to incorporate this in here because I really like the shape of it. I'm gonna have to decide where it is I can put this in and not take away from the arrangement. So can you see that I've put it down through the middle, and I'm going to press it in. And what I may have to do is cut off a little bit of this curve at the bottom to get it to angle in there like I want it to. And you have to move the leaves around. So, can you see that okay? So I think that adds a great Asian look to it. Now I have a taller piece, and I might put it here in the back. And then because I have two branches on this one, that would give me an odd number. And because this is so crooked at the bottom, I'm going to have to clip it off because, well, let me see. What if yeah, I might have to clip off part of it. That piece jumped off the table. Okay. Do you see, can you see my other piece going out here? And what's nice is this has little buds on it, which are beautiful looking. So I think now I'm going to stop because I have good alignment, I have good balance, and I have some interesting pieces sticking out. In the spring and fall, when you can get to your iris leaves and your Yakuba leaves and all that look good, you can artfully place those in here. And you can also bend them over and punch a little hole through it and wrap them through and make a loop out of those leaves. But I didn't have any tall leaves, thin leaves, but I like those too. But I'm hoping that that looks good from where you are. Are there any questions? Let's stop right now and take some questions.
Okay, good. I will ask some questions. Question from Fran. Does the Kenzan come in different colors?
I've seen it in silver and brass and black. I always buy the black just because it makes it disappear in your container. You don't really want to see it.
Are they the same as also called frogs?
Well, frogs usually are ceramic or glass, and their openings are a little bit bigger, and you have to place the flower where the opening is. With the Kenzan, you have a lot more flexibility because you have, I don't know, probably 200 needles in there. So it gives you more flexibility. A frog also, usually you have to have larger branches. And sometimes you use very thin pieces here. And I will add, if you do have a real thin piece and you want to, it won't adjust to it won't stick into the Kenzan well enough because it's too thin. You can cut off another little piece of stem off of something else and put it right next to it or put it up on the end of it and wedge it in so that you can use a real thin piece of flour. or a branch. So you can make some little pieces and wedge in at the bottom to make them stand up.
With support. Another question was, you started with three of the chrysanthemums. So it's the total number of flowers that needs to be odd. It's not that each kind of flower. So you started with the three main ones, but then as you added, like you have two others, but as long as it adds up to an odd number.
Right. Well, your main flowers need to all be the same kind and need to be three. And then see, I have this one and I have this one cluster of chrysanthemums. And so I try to keep it odd number by flower. Now you don't have to, you can be a lot more creative if you want to. You see in this dried arrangement, my chrysanthemums are the three main ones. And then I have three coneflower buds. I have one crepe myrtle and one allium, which is my star piece in here. And it's wiggling around a little bit because it's hollow and it's having a harder time standing up in there. But
let me just see. Oh, the branches. Did you say they were from a cigar tree?
yes, a cigar shrub. It makes these wonderful bent branches, and it has these long, I don't know what you call them, maybe Tom knows, long buds that hang down from it in the summertime. And I bought it so that I could have crooked branches. You can go get any kind of branch out of your yard. And like I said, here's some bamboo pieces. We could stick one or two bamboo pieces in here. In addition, or one, two, or three, in addition to what we have, or use them instead of the branches. But I like these too. And in fact, if you put these in here, you can go a lot taller. And a lot of arrangements that you see will have bamboo stuck in there. I'll stick one in back behind here so you can see. I think it adds a nice, it makes it a little more upright. If you're putting this in your foyer and it's up against the wall, you can go a lot more upright with it. And then you can always add a few in the arrangement. That's the end piece of the one I just used. And then I probably need to cut one a little bit shorter. Nothing's ever the same height or the same placement.
Are you putting those are you putting them in between the little pins or on the pins?
I don't know. I'm just sticking them in there and feeling it to where I get the firmest position. Most of them are on top of a pin and between pins, but you just have to feel it to get your firmest. And once you get a firm position, see, you can move it. And I think it's good. See, these kind of added a nice little something. And I'm watching the screen because I'm doing it from the back. But you see, that makes a nice, that gives another element, a triangle, I've got scaling, a scaling dimension to this arrangement as
well. Let's just see. They pretty much, are the arrangements pretty firm? I mean, I guess it depends on how, they don't fall over. I mean, unless they're.
No, they don't, unless the end of your flower gets shredded, where if you put it in, if you push it in there and take it back out, push it back in, it'll shred the end of the flower. You might need to snip that off and try again. Some flowers, excuse me, are more delicate than others. And so they won't stand up as well. You can wire them. I could show you how to wire them. Like Shasta daisies have to be wired. Roses have to be wired. You can wire them internally or wrap it around the outside.
Oh, to give it to us. Do you have a favorite place where you buy your supplies?
Well, I've had most of them for many years. I did teach a class on this and bought the containers online and the Kinzans online in Max. But I do, whenever I go to a local art shop or craft shop, excuse me, I will look to see what they have. And if you just kind of collect along the way and then you have it when you need it. I would send you to the Stone Lantern where I studied, but it's no longer open, so I don't have a great resource.
That's great. Okay, I think I've gone through all the questions. We can ask some more later, but if you want to continue.
Okay, I'm going to move this up here. And then I'll use this fish container. Can you see it? It's small, it's bronze. I really like it. You can place it any way you want. It's a great guest bathroom container. I'm filling it with water.
Is that just regular water?
Yes, just regular water. I like to use distilled water or I like to let it sit out 24 hours so that all the chlorine and all has evaporated in it. But what's fun about this fish container is you can put a longer piece in here out the fish's mouth. So again, I'm going to remove the damaged leaves, and this one has a brown spot on it, so I'm going to take it off. And then I'm just going to look at my fish and determine where I think this might go. Now my platform, I could do 1.5 times my platform and probably get pretty close to a good length for this. But it's kind of fun with the fish. You see, you can put it in there. And now I think that's a little long, so I'm gonna cut it off again. And I think that looks better. So now I can fill in with, let's see what else I have here. I could fill in with a carnation. And I would put it closer to the fish's mouth, remove the leaves at the bottom. And on these, there's not a Kinzan inside this fish. It's just open. So on these, what I like to do on my flowers is snip the end open. So that's essentially what's happening when you're putting it on Kinzan. So I like to snip that open so it gets a lot of water. And you see that looks pretty, just like that. The placement. This is sort of like water shooting out of the fish's mouth, and it features that carnation. If I had a couple of pretty green leaves, I would do that. I would stick that in there.
So this is only 2 flowers. Does that?
Right.
Okay.
But it's 1 each. It's 1 each. So you're good there. I could take, these are some more dried cone flowers, but I don't really like that in there. It seems too harsh and too abrupt for these pretty soft flowers. So I might set those aside. This is where you contemplate what would be best. And it would be nice if I had some tall, thin, pointed leaves to put in here, like from an iris. And I have a water garden from my water iris. I would clip some of those and put in here. You could maybe even try a piece of bamboo. And in fact, I think I'm going to lower the carnation a little more. As you study it and think about it, now I'm going to cut this down a little bit. you have to do what you think's right or what feels right. Just kind of meditate on it and think about what it is you're doing. And in the bathroom, in my guest bathroom, I like to use a smaller container on the vanity because it makes you look down on the flowers, so you get to see the flowers, the face of the flowers easily. And then I have containers. They're triangular and 3 of them fit together. So there is an arrangement you could do that where you put flowers in each container and they sort of arch over and they meet the other container, and you kind of weave this pattern through there and make them look like they would maybe naturally in a pond or something. Move this over. This is a dish like any of you may have, and I have river rocks in here, just different ones, and I like to put those in there, and then I'll put my kinzon on one end, and then pour my water in and cover up the kinzon, and this makes it look like a stream bed, a natural water bed. And as you go along, every few days you need to add water to your container because these moms will drink up that water. By tomorrow, that'll be half gone, that water. So these will last over a week if you water them. If they're not in direct sunlight where they get too hot, flowers like cold bottoms and warm tops after you've cut them. So, but then I have this arrangement, and I could start again with my Moribana style upright arrangement and make another one. And I still have plenty of flowers left in here. So, are there any more questions?
At this point, if anybody would like to unmute themselves and ask a question.
Well, I did have a question. Was the arrangement you did in the fish face a Moribana arrangement, or does Moribana need the scalene triangles in it?
Well, no, it was just a free form. Moribana is the one with the 3 major placements of flowers. And so I just did that free form.
Okay, thank you.
To match that arrangement.
And when you do a free form, you can use any number of flowers. It doesn't have to be even or odd, or is it?
Well, Japanese flower arranging likes odd numbers regardless of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
If I had a big, beautiful spider mom, I would put that in the middle. I would start with that and build a scalene around it, kind of like I did with this allium. Can y'all see that allium dried bloom? I also have this container, and this is a little flower. It's a little woven flower container with a handle over the top. And don't be afraid. I'll move it to the center. Don't be afraid when you're working with these to let your flower come out way over the top. In other words, be above the handle on the container. I'm always removing dead leaves very carefully. Sometimes you have to trim them with your scissors. But you can do the similar scaling arrangement in a small upright vase like this. And you see I have, let me see, which one am I doing? I'm gonna lower this. I have some in front of the handle on the top and some behind it. It would help if I had water in here. And if you have trouble like this with these standing up, you can put a few pebbles down into the container, and that'll give you some friction at the bottom for the stems to align with. Let me get some more water and I'll put that in. And again, if I had big iris leaves or even hydrangea leaves, anything like that, you can put them in here and augment with that. See, that looks pretty. That shows off. You have a nice landscape of pink flowers there. And I mean, I'm always moving them around. When I walk by, I might move it. I might change it a little bit if I think, well, you know, I think it needs to look a little different. But like this arrangement and like this straight arrangement, once you get it right, you can move it. It's very firmly in there, and you can move it around, and it looks beautiful. And if you have the placement right and it feels right, it looks beautiful all the time. You don't have to go back and rearrange it every time you look at it. So. See, I basically use 3 clusters right here, and I should have worn white, but you can see this vase right here. It's woven, and so it all kind of flows. The same shapes and curves and forms are here on this vase.
There's a piece of white there's a piece of white paper behind you, Janet, that you could put in front of that to make it stand out. Could that be moved? That piece of white stuff.
Yes, or I can hold up another one maybe. Does that help?
That's good. Any questions? If anybody has any comments or questions? That looks good.
I'm going to bring another sheet. Thank you. Now that shows it off good. And iris look pretty. 3 irises would look pretty in this arrangement. I mean, I just go pick. I go out and look, and whatever I have that looks good, I pick. I have made one with a huge Japanese maple rim hanging out way over the side, and a few little pieces down in the front. And that's really one of my favorites. And here, I'll put this behind this fresh one that we made so that you can see it.
Oh, we have a question. What other forms of Ikebana are there?
Well, there are different schools, and within each school you have different arrangements, and there is a whole book on those. You can do a low cascading. They're just different forms. This is one of the more simpler, easier ones to explain and to teach. Some of them get pretty complicated, but they're all shapes and sizes. They go every direction. You can have a cascading that comes off the table. Like I said, you can use a Japanese maple branch and it weaves way over to the side. So there are good books out there, and you can copy just about anything that you see. So it's just a fun art to have. And it doesn't take much effort, doesn't take many flowers. It makes good use of what you have in your yard. You can do it without greenery. You don't have to have flowers. You can use different kinds of leaves and make an arrangement, or a branch off a tree, or a dead branch that doesn't have leaves on it. I've used those a lot. I'll stick that dead branch in there, and then I'll put maybe a few Ikebana leaves, and then maybe a focal point in the front, maybe something that's dried that I'll find. Coral bells. I use little coral bell flowers sometimes. I love those coral bell leaves and Gaelics leaves. You can use those flat, round leaves, and you can place them near the bottom of the container. They make a nice little, sort of like a landscape. You can place those across the bottom of your arrangement, and I like those. They work well. My Gaelics leaves, my Gaelics leaves aren't there right now, but my coral bell leaves didn't look too good this time of year. I will tell you, you can take bamboo pieces and cut them and make a little lattice work piece with string. I could take these two pieces right here, and I could add a piece across it like that, and take some string and wrap it around. There's a certain way they do it, but you can wrap it around each joint. And of course, I would cut this off. It wouldn't be this long, but it makes a nice additional piece if you want in the back. And that's kind of Asian looking. I see that a lot. I have a few at home that are already made up that I use. But do you see what I mean right there?
Could you use something else that isn't like a plant, like a feather? Do they do that?
I've never seen that. But I think once you know these principles, if you want to make an arrangement out of feathers, you could do it. You could use the same kind of placement and form and shape and make a beautiful arrangement that way. But I have never seen the Asians. Now they'll use a feather-like piece of greenery or flower. They will use those. And grasses. You can use grasses. There's some pretty grasses. I try not to grow any non-native grasses since I became a master gardener. But they make some pretty arching leafways you can put over. And you can arch it forward, you can arch it to the side. You just need to look at it. And you can just tell. If it doesn't look right, it's not right. If it looks balanced and pleasant, then you've probably done it. If it looks crazy or wompy, then you need to work on it some more. That's the creative part of it. I guess that's how you just know that you're accentuating the flowers and showing them off.
One more question. Are there different sizes of kenzans?
Yes, there are. There's some little tiny ones. They're probably just an inch in diameter. And there's some really big ones. They're not all round. Some of them are square. I have some square ones. Sometimes you can stack them. Like if you need to. If you have a big square one, you can put a little round one in one corner. And some people attach them to their containers. Like, I bought this way, but the kenzan is just in a floral disc, a little flat container, and it's just glued in here. So you can make it more permanent. And what's nice about that is then as you're moving it, your kenzan don't wiggle around in there, and you don't lose your arrangement. So these will be easy to make. can you see that green floral disc back there? That's apparently it's a tiny little Kinzon. They glued it to the floral disc and then used some kind of glue or caulk to attach this to this piece of jade.
And you could get those containers also in like a craft store, or would you go online to look for them?
I'd probably go online for this specialty. I've never seen these in the craft store. Now, if you go to Chinatown or I buy in San Francisco, I found a great store in Amsterdam. You know, it has to be a specialty store usually to get these kinds of beautiful things. And they also have big rocks there that you can buy. And you can place a pretty rock on this back shelf of this container. Or you can put a little Chinese man, a little pottery person in the front if you want. There's a cute one that has a little fishing pole, a little fish on it. You can augment it that way if you want to. I do have some pretty rocks that mimic mountain landscape that I use sometimes.
Any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself if you want to ask a question. If you are there any?
Do you ever use driftwood? Do you ever use driftwood for your arrangements?
Sure, and I've seen driftwood drilled into. I've seen somebody take a piece of driftwood, drill into it, put their Kinzon in there, and that makes a beautiful arrangement. I do have pieces of driftwood I just have around the house and in my garden, of course, bigger pieces, but that's a great idea. You would need to be able to get down inside of it. I mean, I guess you could drape it across the front. I think that might look a little odd. I don't know, but I have seen driftwood made into a container.
Any books that you recommend?
Well, I could have brought a library full, but and some of the best ones are in Japanese. And so if you go to an estate sale or somewhere, don't be intimidated that it's in Japanese. Buy it anyway and just look at the picture because they have great pictures. A lot of them are on rice paper. A friend just gave me one that is beautiful. It's 3 volumes bound in a little cardboard box. And the pictures are beautiful. And so I will just copy what I see in there. There are several popular ones. I didn't bring those, but there are some basic ones and there are some more advanced ones. And I think you could probably look online and find one that might suit you best, depending on what kind of style.
It's Kenzan, right?
Right.
Do they need cleaning, and how do you clean them if necessary?
Well, I put them in soapy water in the sink, and they do tend to get a water deposit build up on some of them, and I very carefully clean that off. But if you keep the water off the container, which maybe you saw me as I was making it, I wipe the water off. This is a metal container. Can you hear that? And so I wipe the water off. I don't want a water spot on there. I don't want a fingerprint on there. And so I will keep that clean. And then once you fill up the Kinzan opening with water, you don't really see many of those water deposits in there. So it all looks black and shiny. But I do need to oil my scissors. You have to take good care of them. And I have been remiss in that regard.
I'd just like to say thank you to Janet. I think this was great. Did a really good job.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And I hope that it will inspire you. Go get one container, one Kinzan, and just do it. It's easy. It will enrich your life. You can go out in your yard and pick a few things, and you'll be amazed at how beautiful it comes together without a lot of effort and without a lot of supplies. I have probably 12 stems of flowers left over here. Now these clusters of moms like this are a little harder to use. They're a little dense, but you don't always get these. But I can probably make 3 or 4 more arrangements out of this. I have 3 carnations left. I can make one out of those. So one arrangement will fill up your whole house if you do it this way. And you don't have to have the kids on. You can have an upright container like this basket. And are there any other questions? I appreciate you all joining us today. It's been fun. I will say you can take these mom clusters like this and you can start pulling off pieces of it. You don't need all of this. And so I would probably simplify it, and you can still use these later, but you don't want too much. And you can make a nice looking cluster. I'll just snip this off. But do not be afraid to cut away. You don't have to take every piece that's grown. And you see, I cut off 3 or 4 blooms and it already looks better. I've separated the blossoms and given them a little more independence so that you can appreciate them on their own.
Everyone says thank you.
Okay, thank you all, appreciate it. Go forth and Ikebana.